Blessings, my personal best to all of you who are within reach of my voice by whatever medium, be it on social media, be it via radio transmission. I just wanted to extend my personal best to you. I hope that this year brings you a better set of elements, opportunities, what have you, than the previous year. I trust that all of us will experience the blessings of the Creator Most High. Of course, we get those blessings coming to us daily. The blessings of the sun, the blessings of the moon, the blessings of the air, the blessings of the waters. That's something we experience all the time. But beyond that, of course, we as human beings, we look forward to some other items such as prosperity, wealth, and happiness and joy that surpasses the ordinary. And so I just wish you the best. For those of us who have difficulty navigating this journey within this matrix, I pray that we would seek guidance from higher sources, from the Supreme Mind, to help us better navigate this journey. And so let's just simply hope for the best for all of us. Now, having said that, folks, I realize that the matrix is sort of like a difficult place to, how should I put it, to find one's bearings. I sometimes take a look at nature. I look at the animals that are around us, and so much that you find in us, you will also find in the animals in terms of what is called anatomy, in terms of biology. Because the majority of animals that we have, majority of creatures, they do consume food and they go through certain processes just as much as we do. You have an intake of food and then you have an output of waste. It's just part of the matrix. It's a part of the system in which we live. And so I watch things like defense mechanisms given to some creatures, and it might seem brutal to us when you think of the venom that snakes have, when you think of what tigers have been equipped with, lions and rhinos and what have you. I watch some documentaries, and when I see the interaction between the different species, I say, wow. But to each his own. Each has been granted special mechanisms of defense. And trust me, man, whether it's an ant that has venom that can really sort of like paralyze the one that is bitten, whether it is a spider with its stuff, they all have ways and means of defending themselves. And you wonder sometimes, well, how did those toxins come about? Who invented those toxins to put in those creatures? And whilst it's in the body of those creatures, it doesn't affect them negatively. But once they put it out onto an enemy, a perceived threat, it takes action. And so it's just amazing. And this whole construct that we refer to as the matrix, it's absolutely mind-boggling. But I try to find comfort as far as my position in this matrix is concerned. And so let me share with you how I find comfort. First of all, I recognize the existence, the supreme power, the sovereignty of supreme mind over all that we see, all that we perceive. And I ask for direction from supreme mind so that I can navigate this journey successfully. I try to take everything in stride. There is a prayer. I forget how I came across that prayer, but it's not in the Bible. I thought it was in the Bible, but it's not in the Bible. And it's called the prayer of serenity. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I try to be guided by such a prayer because there are some things that just totally beyond my control. And then there are those things that are within the perimeter of what I can control. And so I look at these things and I take action accordingly. So again, I want to say I'm thankful to the Creator Most High for the gift of life, for guidance, for wisdom, for knowledge, for understanding that He's bestowed upon me. And I will continue to do my best to be of service, to my fellow human beings, to be of service to the Most High above all, because He is the chief architect. He is the supreme mind. And I know that I'm using gender terms as I speak here, and some will take exception to that. But be it what it may, let's find our, let's establish our bearings. Let's see how we can find common ground, and let not the petty differences keep us separate and apart from each other. And so that is the sort of approach that I take in life. I attended a secondary school, high school, and the motto of that school was that you enter to learn and you depart to serve. And so I think that has stuck with me throughout my life. And hence the reason why I am committed to a life of service to my fellow human beings, a life of service to humanity. Now the numbers here are 7730390 and 7730490 if you want to take a shot at it, if you want to share some personal experience, some personal views with the audience, and feel free to do so. Give me a shout out and let's hear what's your take, what's on your mind, what you would like to share with all of us. I am expecting at some point during the course of this program, I'm expecting someone to come in. I have a guest coming in to discuss in particular a proposed piece of legislation. I don't know exactly at what time the individual is coming in, because I did tell the individual, come in at your convenience, so that we can get into some discussion. And hopefully we can take it a little beyond that, because there are lots of things I think I would like to take up with that individual. So we're going to see how it all pans out. Let's see this here. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. John Baptiste. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How about you? How are you doing in this new year?
I just want to say first condolences to the family of the lady who lost her life to the shock attack.
Appropriate, what is
because it's all over the internet, CBS News, talking about shock attack, lady killed in a person. One of the things I've been here and want to say to the gentleman who I saw a video, he was supposedly in a hotel room, heard screaming, went outside and was able to swim out to the injured lady and bring her back to the shore.
Mm-hmm.
And while they were waiting for the EMS to get there to take her to the ER, I think anybody said that they used a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. Now, as a scout, former scout, that's especially when a major artery has been breached.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one of the things you do to stop the bleeding, so the individual wouldn't bleed out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that would have been use a belt, some kind of card, something that could have tied around. Because from what I heard, the short bit from her, you know, she lost from her elbow down.
Mm-hmm.
So if they could have tied it around, you know, her arm, just like when you're doing a blood pressure test,
mm-hmm. Well,
when
if I may interject here, that
sure.
one of the videos that I watched, and I think it's one of the original videos, a request was made for a tourniquet. Somebody did ask someone, does anyone have a tourniquet? So that request was made, and the person, I believe it is the person who was doing the actual video recording, did say that they could have used the person's shirt. The person offered, well, you can use my shirt. So I'm certain that some kind of improvisation was made and that the tourniquet was applied. More so, don't forget we had a nurse at the scene and also a retired somebody who had experience in lifeguard duties was also present. So we have two individuals on the scene who pretty much had some knowledge in terms of how they
Medical treatment.
right. So I'm certain that was done. But one of the things we have to take into consideration is that when you hear the account of the nurse who was in on the second floor and who rushed out to help when he heard screams, consider the time it took to get from that second floor unit or apartment to get to the beach and into the water. And then he tells you the amount of blood that was in the water at the time. So certainly when you look at the distance, it did take some time to get to the lake, to the victim and to bring her to shore. And certainly that accounted for significant loss of blood. So when you have a situation where one has experienced extreme shock, one has experienced some significant loss of blood, certainly this plus other, we don't know what other factors played a role here that could have led to the demise of the victim eventually, and that's very unfortunate. Condolences go out to the family for sure.
Yeah, I did see the video with an individual who swam out. He said he was a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
He was also a lifeguard, based on what he said in the video.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, people, I don't know what time of day, you know.
That was approaching dusk. Between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock is when that happened.
See, those are the two times, dusk and dawn,
Mm-hmm.
when, you know, it's more prevalent to have
Mm-hmm.
a attack. And if you're going to swim, try to have someone there with you, a
Mm-hmm.
buddy system, you know, in case you could have gotten a cramp and
Mm-hmm.
started not be able to use your muscles where you can't swim,
Mm-hmm.
so somebody could be there to try to rescue you. So, for future references, you know, try to avoid, you know, swimming during those times. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to be in the water, you know, try to have somebody close by should there be an emergency, because in times like that, time is of the essence, and you know every second counts.
Mm-hmm. You see, unfortunately, we get caught up in a lot of hindsight and what they refer to as Monday morning quarterbacking. Let me just share with you and those listening and viewing that my wife, when she grew up as a child, she lived in the area of Dosh Beach on the other side of the road. That's where she lived. And she told me years ago, she told me that they used to see the sharks. Early in the morning and early evening time, you would see the sharks in the area out there, you know. And so it's a known fact that the sharks are around. We've not had attacks as such for any number of reasons. We've had attacks that were not reported. I have a friend who did spear fishing. He's a fisherman, and he was bitten by a shark when spear fishing one day. He had others with him. He was brought to shore safely. He refused to go to the hospital because, as he related to me, he has knowledge of certain herbs that he could have used. So he just wanted to get to his home. He got herbs to apply to the wound, and he told me himself that perhaps had he gone to the hospital, he might have end up losing the leg. But he knew what to do to take care of the wound, and so he survived. So we've had incidents. Perhaps not every incident is reported, but we have to learn to coexist with those creatures. The ocean is their habitat. We have to be mindful. We've got to be respectful in terms of how we access the ocean, whether it is to obtain food or to have some enjoyment. When I go to the beach, I go to the beach. If the water is above my knee area, I don't go in. I'm very respectful when I go to the beach, but I enjoy the sea water, certainly. So,
Well, let me ask you something because I'm not too familiar with St. Croix. Where that occurred was the individual was Dirt Beach. Does it have a hotel?
there are several.
So this person was just visiting the beach and
No,
was staying somewhere else.
no, there are several small hotels in the area. At least about two or three of them in that general area. Let me share with you and those who are listening. When I first came to the Virgin Islands, um, early 70s, that was. We used to have lifeguards posted at the beach. I don't know why it's not being done anymore. But you used to have lifeguards posted there who, of course, they surveyed the area, and if there was a reason for alarm, they would sound the alarm that you should get out. If somebody was drowning, then they went in to render assistance. And I think it's just perhaps, I don't know if it is common sense, but I think as a matter of practice, we should have lifeguards on hand, especially on weekends when people frequent the beach and during the summertime, and perhaps even have first aid kits around. I'm saying that's just my take on that. But
Uh, Mr. John Baptiste, I second the motion, and you know, when I used to go to, for instance, Navy Bay,
hmm
they had the lifeguard chair which was elevated.
hmm
They would have binoculars, so they would scan the water because a shark most of the time it swims close to the surface and you could see its dorsal fin.
hmm
So they would have a whistle or something to alert the swimmers,
hmm
to get to shore. So the other thing, and I'm sure you recall, I remember hearing the story of an individual on the same Megan's Bay where a shark had bit his arm off with his Timex watch, and they caught the shark. When they cut the shark open, the watch was still ticking. But I think Megan's Bay, after that, they implemented buoys with shark nets
hmm
to keep the sharks from coming into close to the shoreline
hmm
to try to protect the swimmers and bathers. So, like I say, if we're gonna uh, base our GDP on tourism, we have to make sure that not just for tourism, but for locals as well, because tourists will come so often and they go back. But
hmm
people who reside on the island and who like to go and take a little bit, you know, just for their own safety and peace of mind, if there's some sort of barrier that they know that they can swim and not have to encounter sharks, that I sure ease a lot of people's mind. And now with this fatal attack,
hmm
it's going to make people more cautious and concerned about, like they say, going into the ocean.
hmm
Uh, I just want to turn a page quickly as I just want to hear your take on what's currently taking place geopolitically with the United States and what's going on with Venezuela, with Trump, and how do you think that will affect the U.S. Virgin Islands?
well, let me just say that I am restrained somewhat in terms of expressing my take publicly because of the fact that I believe that we ought to respect the authority of those in leadership. Not That doesn't necessarily mean that we are always in agreement with the exercise of that authority. So while I respect the authority of the President of the United States to do as he seems right, um, whilst I respect that, I am in disagreement with the manner in which that was done. I think that the sovereignty of any nation should be respected, should be acknowledged, and I don't think it's right for people to simply, or for any other nation to go into a nation, invade its sovereignty, and kidnap or capture or take hold of the leader of that country. I mean, I'm opposed to that. But that doesn't mean that I am going to publicly um, malign, um, denigrate the President of the United States for so doing.
Well, let me say this. As now that I reside here in New York, and I'm a registered voter, and I have the ability to vote for the president, which I didn't vote for him last November. As I look at what took place, where they were just killing these people and these boats indiscriminately, and saying, well, these are not fishing boats. Well, for me, I was born in St. Kitts. We got our green cards from Barbados, and when we were 7, we moved to St. Thomas. Well, a lot of things people they say, well, they don't realize it because some of these boats could be water taxis. They say, oh, they have these big motors. Well, I see some of these boats that going fishing for wahoo, mahi, marlin. Some of these new boats have 5 and 6 outboard motors on them. So because you see that doesn't mean that that boat is a drug running boat. And that's why we have the Coast Guard, so that they can pull up on these boats and board them and see if they're carrying anything that they shouldn't be carrying. To just kill these people without any justice, well, that comes right back to the fact that there's no checks and balances, because we have Congress, we have the top court of the land, the Supreme Court, that has been compromised. And when you have no checks and everything is out of balance, then this is what you have. So right now, as we look forward to this November, the midterms, where you're already hearing Trump and his administration and his supporters say, well, if we lose this midterm, we could be impeached, or we're not worrying about the impeachment, because we know the Senate, I think it was maybe 2/3 of the Senate to actually do the impeachment, even if the Democrats take over the House. But it's just to put a check. For instance, the big thing right now, as I'm sure you're aware of what just happened in Minnesota with the lady who was just killed.
Yes.
And now ICE, with their Gestapo tactics, kicking in doors, going door to door. Well, if you have a check where the first branch of government, which is the purse string, if they defund ICE, if they don't have the funding, then they can go about doing these tactics. So I am looking forward to come this November, just like when I relocated back here in 2018, and where, of course, this was Trump's first term as the president, where I voted straight Democrat, and one of the things I voted for was for the New York Attorney General, Ms. Tish James, and I see the same thing happening, where the Dems will be able to withdrawals that's taking place, that might be the saving grace or the light at the end of the tunnel, because if that doesn't take place, I shudder to see what will happen if them don't at least take over the house, so that we could have some checks put back in place and hopefully have, you know, a little balance. As should they say, we're supposed to be three co-equal branches of government. And right now, if it wasn't for the judiciary and the people who is the government, we the people who are standing up in the streets, you know, I don't know what else to say. What will become of the United States?
Well, if I may interject here,
Sure,
and of course the Democrats and Republicans will have their battles and they will settle it whichever way it is to be settled. But let me just also say to you and those listening that, and I should also state that any kind of hostility in the Caribbean area will have impact on the tourism product, the tourism industry. But if you notice what's happening right now, a number of Caribbean islands seem to be kowtowing to the authority of the United States of America. In other words, President Trump has been able to strike some kind of deal with the government, or at least the Prime Minister of Antigua Barbuda and that of Dominica, and I understand also that of St. Lucia, where they have agreed to accept non-violent deportees coming into their respective islands. And so that is very significant when you think in terms of the influence that the President of the United States is able to exert on Caribbean nations. I understand that the influence has been exerted on the island nation of Trinidad and Tobago as well, and others. So we've got to take all of this into consideration when you look at this geopolitical matrix that is unfolding before us at this present point in time. And my only hope is that it doesn't blow out into something that draws or presents a conflict of magnitude proportions between China, Iran, Russia, and the United States of America.
Well, let me end on this note. I don't know what CARICOM is doing. I know Antigua, Barbuda, and the other islands who first stood up to the president, and then he put a block travel ban, saying his leave is on the other islands. Maybe, you know, like you say, that would be cutting off their lifeblood, which is tourism. We just saw when they had when they went in and got Nicolas Maduro, that he wasn't able to fly. Now, should the conflict where they have boots on the ground, and where if they're still taking these tankers, then who's to say Russia, China mightn't sink a maritime commercial vessel? And if that should occur, then if you're not getting goods shipped in to freight, then how long can islands go without getting weekly tropical, I tell you, just specifically the Virgin Islands? This, to me, goes back to where we've been talking about being able to at least feed yourself agriculturally. Goes back to agriculture, where in case of something like this should happen, that it could be any kind of military conflict that could be sustained over a significant period of time, then how are you going to get food on the shelves? So for people to keep taking agriculture for granted, not as a way to market and be an exporter, but just to feed your indigenous population, would think that I guess the state or territory address is going to be sometime soon, or in January, that this should be a significant part of the agenda, trying to put money into agriculture, so at least they could start. Don't wait till when it's too late, to start now.
You just
the plan to fail.
You just opened the can that lets out so much that we can talk about. But I do have a guest who has come in, so we got to move on.
Well, we'll put a pin in it right there. I reserve the rest of my time, and I'm going to hang up and continue listening to the program. You take care, and health and strength as we move forward in this year.
Same to you. Be blessed. All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. I don't know. I'm not seeing that. Let me just try and see it. Hello, caller.
Hi, good morning, Senator Baptiste. How are you? I see the small head is there.
Yes. How do you see that? You're watching on Facebook?
I see it online.
Oh, okay.
My good lady is there. Good morning, small head.
Good morning. Good morning.
You've abandoned me, but it's good that you've come back home this morning.
No. I ain't abandoned you. I was waiting for you to see what I was talking about.
I see. All right. Well, it's good to hear your voice. Let me just hold on the line. Don't go anywhere. Let me allow Peggy to go ahead and say hello to the folks and introduce herself and what have you. Go ahead, Peggy.
Good morning. Good morning. Master Baptiste, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come in here and talk to your listening audience. Really, my topic is it's not what Mr. Brown is concerned about. I am dealing with the legislation 36-0187 that focuses primarily on the use of paper ballots, and that's what I want to explain and interact with your audience if it need be, because I know there is some misinformation going around concerning it.
Yeah. We'll get into that. Dr. Brown.
Yes.
Let's hear you. Go ahead.
I gotta be quick. We live in a time where people are saying that might makes right and it's wrong. But scripture talks about might is right. You know that, right? I'll show you.
Well, I'm not. Maybe one branch of the scripture, but if you go to on the book of First Kings, I think it's chapter 21 and 22 with the Queen Jezebel and King Ahaz, and forcing the guy, actually murdering the guy Naboth, so they could lay claim to his vineyard. That wasn't right, and there was a consequence.
No, and what happened?
There was a consequence. What happened to her?
No consequence.
Yeah, the dogs licked the blood as prophesied, both she and the king, and disaster came eventually. So that's one case in scripture. Yeah, go ahead.
You're still proving my point, Senator Baptiste, because King Saul said he was gonna kill David, right?
Yep.
But the Lord said you're not the one anymore. Your time is up. And Saul fought, and Saul and his sons died.
Absolutely.
So who has the power in that? It's God, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's God.
That's right.
So might is just sometimes because that's scripture. And God allows all things to happen, whether we agree with it or not. Now, because I know Miss Moore has time. Miss Moore, you got tell them I got
No. You go ahead. Take your time and say what you need to Dr. Brown. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. So I always Abdul and everything. That's still my guy, but Ms. Moorhead has been good to me to give me the time, and so I gonna tell the story that nobody's gonna believe. All the thing about Greenland. The Danes don't have no say in Greenland. The Danes don't have no say in the Virgin Islands, and the U.S. don't have no say in the Virgin Islands. So on the 28th, right, Ms. Moorhead, from 1 to 4:30, I gonna be on her show, God willing, and I'm gonna tell the people of the Virgin Islands the story. Now, really quickly, Senator Baptiste. This is the moment for CARICOM. Cuba needs to make a deal. He's going to starve them. Remember, he said it yesterday. Make a deal now, because I ain't gonna make a deal with you after. I know where your leaders live. He's telling them there ain't gonna be no Cuban migrants going to Florida. I will kill you, and then who's next? This is CARICOM's time to step up, and elite that can be good with them and said, listen, you guys can't win. You ain't getting no fuel. Nowhere. No one is your friend. The Russians ain't coming to help you. And why would the Chinese come to help you and the Chinese need fuel? And you guys don't have fuel yourself. You're going to starve. And he's going to starve you. I'm telling you, I'm not asking anybody in the Virgin Islands. I was in the room. He's going to starve them. And that's not the image we need in the Caribbean. Our Cherokee, our Cuban brothers and sisters starve. But if they want to hold on to this communist thinking, then go ahead and find out who has the power.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
But hold on. And we say that CARICOM has been silent because the head of CARICOM, who of course it is St. Kitts Nevis, Prime Minister, but he has not said much. But I think the lady in Barbados has spoken out in terms of what's happening.
Baptiste,
Yes.
then let me ask you again. I just told you about Mike. Who do you see in the room with Marco Rubio? Do you see those people or Miss Bassad, I think, out of Trinidad and Tobago? Who is in the room with Marco Rubio?
Mm-hmm.
Not them. She is. That's what she's telling them. Mm-hmm. You're not relevant. You're not in the room. We need to be in the room. If you're not in the room, you're just talking words. Self-determination is a concept. Right? That's a concept. But a hellfire missile with blades coming at you, so your chair will see you bleeding in your car. That's real.
So what happens to the phrase that there is strength in unity? If there is unity, why can CARICOM be strong and stand up as a solid force? Perhaps it's because there is a bit of fragmentation that we cannot stand in that fashion.
Well, Trump has said, and this gets to the issue that I abandon you, but the last issue we talked about was denaturalization, which Ms. Moore talked about.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you in that situation because, as Mr. Trump said, if you feel today you're talking things on the radio, social media, anything, and you're a naturalized citizen, he's going to want you gone too.
Well,
I don't want to put you in that.
Yeah, no, don't be afraid for me. Don't be afraid for me because I have, listener, there is one power that I bow to, and that's the Most High. So if he feels that he wants, if he feels that he wants to get me denaturalized because I'm expressing my truth on radio, then let him go ahead and do so.
Yeah, but you have the courage. A lot of people silent. I'm telling you, there ain't gonna be no parade about this parade and this flying your flag. He tell you none of that stuff. If you're here, you fly the U.S. flag.
Right.
You're in the Virgin Islands, you fly the Virgin Islands flag. You fly the Colorado flag if you're Colorado. But you fly the flag of the United States and whichever other flag.
Yeah.
Don't fly no other flag in the
Right.
in the States. He made all of these things clear.
And there is legislation being considered right now by one congressman by the name of Moreno, I think is his name, where he's saying that you can't have two passports as some people do. You can only have one.
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
It's crazy.
Right. So that's the power. So there ain't no China, there's no Russia. That's a whole different situation as everybody can see. The Chinese was there with Maduro. They closed the door when Delta could tell them close the door. They're transactional. They're about money. And the Russians got all kind of issues with their society. And there's no nation in this hemisphere that can go in and stop the U.S. from starving the people of Cuba. So they need to go with CARICOM leaders need to do something. You can't just sit on the line and say, well, please could go by the Cubans. No, you got to get engaged with the Cubans and say, listen, they're going to do bad things to you guys. Let's cut a deal and let's see what we could do. Try something, Mr. Baptiste. Don't just sit there and talk.
We're living at a difficult juncture in the history of the Caribbean and the history of the world, my brother. Nobody knows. That's a quick shift. You know, from 2024 to now, that's a significant shift that perhaps no one saw coming. And the definitive end of it, nobody knows right now. We don't know what's going to happen.
Senator Baptiste, didn't I tell you just in the beginning? You've got to be in the rooms, and I was in the rooms.
All righty.
When you're in the rooms, it don't matter if it's 2020 or 1998. When you're in the rooms and have people that were in the room already having ideologies and saying certain things, all you need is someone who's going to be your face.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's make sure we take care of the home too, because we want to survive the turbulent times that we're living in right now. So let's make sure The leadership is there to guide us and to make sure we have everything in place in terms of food and water security, etc.
Yes, indeed. Ms. Moore, thank you. Mr. Baptiste, thank you. Have a great day. And I can be on the 28th for God willing.
All right. Thanks for calling and sharing.
No problem.
Be blessed.
Okay, no
Bye.
problem.
You are not a God.
Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Sean Bob. How are you today?
I am doing fine. I have good company, great company with me this morning. Miss Mary Moorhead. Mary, take it. Let me hear that.
Yeah, I tuned in and I heard the voice of Mr. Republican.
Yeah, but Miss Moorhead is right here with me.
Okay, that's good, that's good. How are you, my brother Brown?
He's left already, but he may be listening.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I heard him. I have collaborated with him several times when he's on Peggy Moorhead show. He seems to be well read and very much involved with the National Republican Party politics.
Mm-hmm. You said it.
I continue to ask myself, why does the President of the United States feel or believe that God needs his help? And I say that very guardedly. There are some folks who, if the Donald, as he is called, does anything wrong, they find a way to make it right. And it's as if God died and left him in charge. Now, I mean, I'm sure those of us that keep up with what's happening saw the tantrum. You know, a baby sometimes shows a tantrum when he wants a bottle or attention. But this gentleman threw a hell of a tantrum because the Congress, with help of his Republicans, voted that he needs to check himself and stop getting into everybody else's business.
Mm-hmm.
He don't like that because he's supposed to be in everybody's business because he's looking seemingly for what I would call to be he's the savior of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a sad thing. I mean, just let's look at, if someone don't know what strategy, then maybe they think it is cute. First of all, it's very, very expensive. The nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers, as well as what he himself said. It was 100 and some fighter jets that he had in the air. That's why commercial traffic had to be almost cut to zero.
Mm-hmm.
That is not cheap. Who is paying for it? Is it necessary? You know? And like I said, some people, no matter what wrong this man do, they're going to find a way and say he's the best president. The governor of Montana is the best governor. And I don't know. You look at the cost of that, you look at the lives being lost for what? Now,
Have you read or heard of the book "The End Justifies the Means"?
the end justify the means. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a natural thing, but I haven't read the book, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so
The end justify the means.
So let me ask you then. I know that doesn't mean that I'm giving approval to any of what the president has been doing.
I understand.
But head is here. When you consider the formation of BRICS and what kind of threat BRICS poses to the United States of America, when you consider the Chinese imprint the world over and what this means to American superiority, when you consider news items that have been coming out that cast a shadow, a bad light on the president and other parties in America, do you understand why the principle, the policy of the end justifies the means comes into play here?
Well, I must tell you no. I'll tell you why. Let's look at the situation with, and as I started to mention before, cost is one thing, loss of life, and
it's called collateral damage. It's called collateral damage.
Collateral damage.
Yeah.
A lot of innocent people that have nothing to do with the foolishness. But then let's go back, because you mentioned the word a while ago, American superiority. America is superior to whom? To which country?
You'd be surprised.
Not Russia, not China.
America is definitely superior to Russia right now. Russia, we've seen the weaknesses in the armor of Russia in terms of their engagements in Ukraine right now.
John, I happen to know a lot more of this subject than you know.
Perhaps.
Okay?
And
America is no superior nothing. You look at the other countries and look at their wealth. America is in, I think it says $400 trillion deficit and adding to it every second. Superior than whom? America is spending Chinese dollars. China limit their money. So, I mean, I look at it from that standpoint. If the health is wealth, wealth is leads to superiority. That's when you are broke, RASS. And this gentleman is making America broke up. Now, the small folks like you and I, we are the ones that's in the broke pot with him. But then, of course, he is making his rich, white, racist, white supremacy friends billionaires. I mean, and that might be good, but then to him, but then it widened the caste system. A broke set of Lulu and a very rich and wealthy set that almost no middle class. That's a serious thing for any nation.
Well, let me put you in check. Let me put you in check by telling you something. There is a saying which goes that the borrower is slave to the lender. I have not seen America as a slave to China. I have not seen America operating as a slave to China. So yes, the Chinese may have their investments all over the globe, but that doesn't mean that, they have any measure of superiority over America. That's one. The other thing about it is that when I speak of American superiority, if there wasn't that element of superiority, I don't see how you would have the NATO alliance holding back, because they understand the influence of America. They're holding back in terms of saying or taking any kind of action against the United States of America. You wouldn't have Russia and China and North Korea treading lightly in terms of their condemnation of America. Yes, they're condemning, but sort of like tongue in cheek, as some people put it. So I'm saying to you that American superiority in the world cannot be underestimated or minimized at this point in time. America is still a heavyweight on the block.
Well, they are, but let me say this, Judge, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
When a president of the United States, who by virtue of that position,
Mm-hmm.
the commander-in-chief of military forces in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
but he tried to extend that to be commander-in-chief of the world.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to tell other countries, you do this or else.
Mm-hmm.
I am coming in to take you over.
Mm-hmm.
Who said he so? And why the people of America don't sanction him and try to stop this GD nonsense? I mean, who are you that you think you can? I mean, 500 persons died in Iran this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And he is telling Iran, if they don't get that together, he is sending in military forces.
Mm-hmm.
How much fire is this man going to put out? He's spreading himself, not himself, he's spreading America to death.
Perhaps.
He fight.
Perhaps.
He's going to run away.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps.
It's
But anyway,
black boy.
yeah, let's wrap it up because let's wrap it up. I want to bring Peggy on to share with the folks what she came here to do.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know she was there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay, I'll let you go, but I don't know. I just don't understand why we continue to feel we need to put up with a man who don't want to listen to the courts. He don't want to listen to top military generals. He's firing them or causing them to retire and think that he who never been in the Girl Scouts can run it. You're going to be in for a big surprise. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for calling and sharing. Bye.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Peggy. Let me hear you now.
Well, I just to comment on listening on the conversation there.
Uh-huh.
I do hope that Mr. Nibbs will share with his colleagues, associates, or whatever who are on the mainland with him,
Mm-hmm.
that really the one advantage that they have to make a correction with the situation is to make sure that whatever ballot they're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
in the election, the midterm, top to bottom,
Mm-hmm.
vote Democrat
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and change the power, that with that lack of accountability and control
Mm-hmm.
that the president has.
Mm-hmm. Now, how lack of ability and control that the president has. But when it comes to the election system, we're hearing so much in terms of all kinds of fraudulent activity and the lack of integrity as far as the system is concerned. Not just here in the Virgin Islands, on the mainland as well.
Well,
So how do we deal with that?
Well, we're hearing on the other side where there are organizations that are dealing with that,
Mm-hmm.
and while we may not be hearing up to date on time report, there are supposedly in all the different states
Mm-hmm.
legal challenges that are being filed.
Right.
Okay, and
Okay.
and
Well,
those
let's
seeming to have some control
Mhm.
over the fact that the elections will be to some degree fair.
let's hope that everything pans out well, because even when I look at some of the decisions of the courts, the Supreme Court in particular, I am left with a bitter taste in my mouth. People you expect to decide one way, making decisions the other way, it's this happening. It is. I mean, we gotta tell it like it is. I tell people, and I keep repeating that I respect the presidency or the office of president. That doesn't mean that I approve of everything that the president does.
Mm.
And this is my truth. When I look at America 50, 60 years ago, and I look at America today, many people who get elected into public office in America today would have failed to gain, election 50, 60 years ago. Somehow we have whittled down the criteria. We're whosoever
Well,
may will
I
come
think
and be
it's
accepted.
a part of the lack of our informing, educating, keeping the future generations that have come up behind us up to date as to the historical, the empirical information of what happened, of the sacrifices and whatnot, and they sort of take it for granted,
Mhm.
the position and the opportunities that they have, and just making choices that simply ignore
Mhm.
the sacrifices that were made to bring us to where we are.
Mhm.
And
You realize, and I say to all who listen, those who are listening and viewing,
Yeah.
you realize how Gary had failed to make the cut. Look at the one incident that prevented him from making the cut to become president of the United States of America. And I forget the other lady who had such, I think she vacationed here a couple of times
Mhm.
when she was making a run. And some small scandal came up and she was out. We've had so many incidents of this nature. People who are running for president of the United States of America, one small item, and they were considered persona non grata.
Mhm.
That was some 30, 40 years ago. That's not the situation today.
Mhm.
And so I'm saying, whether we want to say that, we have regressed, I don't know. I can't really put it in the right terms in terms of what has transpired. But certainly America today is not the America of 40, 50 years ago.
Well, I wouldn't call it regression. I just call it a lack of education,
Mhm.
and this is across the board. I mean, while maybe it was not as such a course
Mhm.
when we went to school,
Mhm.
it was definitely a discussion
Mhm.
because we had educators who were true civic citizens. Let's
Mhm.
put it that way.
Mhm.
So they made sure that we were aware of what was important.
Mhm.
While you have nowadays, and this is my opinion, educators who are too tunnel vision.
Mhm.
Their course is math, that's what they stick to.
Mhm.
Their course is science, that's what they stick to. They make no connection to how it impacts
Mhm.
life.
Have you not
So
moved
this,
to a point where we had the concept of team teaching and
we did that in our time,
uh-huh,
and that's what I'm saying is missing now.
it's not being done?
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't I and I'm saying as a member of the board of education
Mhm.
and doing observations or what, it's if it happens it's rare.
Mhm.
Okay, and I
Are
say
you, are
that
you,
because with everything there's always some good
Mhm.
happening, but it's so minuscule
Mhm.
that it really has no impact on the big picture.
So you serve on the Board of Education. Are you aware that a number of people who work in the school system,
Mhm.
when they share their views about what's happening at the school level, they're telling you how, even in terms of when you hear people pass classes,
Mhm.
they have no substance to show that they merit the pass that has been given to them. In other words, there is little actual learning taking place, notwithstanding the fact that you may hear that the children are passing the class.
And again, that goes
Yeah.
back to what I said before. There's no connection.
Mhm.
There's no analytical skill that
Mhm.
is being promoted. There's no discussion for
Mhm.
the children to be able to, have their opinion and have the discussions that are relevant to life.
So where are we heading?
Really, that's a good question.
Wow.
Okay, that's a good question. And in my opinion, I keep saying it's because of the choices that we're making in leadership.
Mhm.
Okay, we're not really vetting our candidates
Mhm.
because I hear people say they'll admit that there's a problem with a certain candidate or aspirant or whatever,
Mhm.
but they'll brush it away and say, well, he did this, so I know he did whatever,
Mhm.
and that just negates everything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is sad.
And
because-
I'm sure you've heard those type of discussions
well,
too,
I,
you know.
well, no,
Yeah.
I know some of the people who run for office. Have, you know, from my personal standpoint, I'm able to look at the candidates, and I'm a little taken aback when I see who gets selected
Mhm.
as opposed to who is rejected. But like you say, there are all kinds of elements, all kinds of factors that come into the mix. Certainly, popularity is one of them. Visibility.
Popularity has become a big factor in our selection now.
Mhm.
You know, if you're popular,
Mhm.
you have an advantage,
Mhm.
regardless of your position,
Wow.
regardless of the fact that sometimes you don't even take positions, and if you do, with a little pressure, you can change.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, these are the things we didn't accept
Mhm.
before.
So, how do you explain the fact that you have rank and file members of the public who will make certain statements about, say, for example, the racetrack, statements about the Pauli Joseph Stadium, and the fact that they don't see any kind of oversight being exercised.
Mhm.
You hear people talk about the Diageo, well, not necessarily Diageo, but the rum cover over, and a lack of accountability in terms of how those funds are expended. And even those who do speak about it don't give a full picture of what's going on.
Because if nothing else, they have learned, to, again, to my observation, that when you are first, or at least part of the ones who bring a topic up,
Mhm.
okay, it matters not what you do about it.
Mhm.
The people remember you that you mentioned it,
Mhm.
that you made it an issue,
Mhm.
but they go no further.
Mhm.
So that's what you get away. And
Wow.
and I look at many of our leaders, they mention something,
Mhm.
they, you know, vocalize the problem,
Mhm.
the issues,
Mhm.
but that's where they stop.
Mhm.
There's no solution. Like right now, I keep saying, for instance, with the, and let me make sure it is understood. This is me saying this, nothing to do with you. The governor's documentary issue.
Mhm.
From the time it was mentioned before it got into PMP,
Mhm.
okay, when it was a rumor, I sent an email to the legislature that included the senators saying it is incumbent that you take your oversight
Mhm.
and research this issue.
Mhm.
Because while I had no problem with the documentary,
Mhm.
I had a problem with it being ran through PNP,
Mhm.
because I don't see that it should be something that should be our tax money,
Mhm.
you know, selecting a contractor to do it.
Mhm.
All the other documentaries of governors were done by our supported public government, WTJX.
Mhm.
So why should this one be different?
Mhm.
Okay?
Then let me ask you, can the governor spend, especially if we have line item budgets, can the governor spend taxpayers' money without authorization from the legislature?
It should be a violation. And I say should be,
Mhm.
because he's done it,
Mhm.
and he did it and got away with it,
Mhm.
because, as I'm pointing out, the legislature fails to act
Mhm.
in its oversight authority to hold him accountable.
Mhm.
And I'm
Wow.
speaking specifically when they took the 25 million that was line item
Mhm.
to pay retroactive
Mhm.
to those of us, and I
Mhm.
think you included in that,
Mhm.
who owed their retroactive since the 90s,
Mhm.
okay, to make up the payroll
Mhm.
after he increased the salary of his cabinet members.
Mhm.
The Senate did not. Some charge or complaint should have been filed against him. They have that authority,
They do.
but they did not.
They do. And
Okay, and he repeated again with the 45 million that
Mhm.
was connected to the gas pay. You know,
So-
so they have shown him that he can do it's similar to what's happening with Trump and the Congress.
That's
They-
unfortunate because, and people I've spoken with tell me it's because that the majority of the players are aligned or affiliated with the Democratic Party. That's what folks tell me on the streets when I have them.
And I agree pretty much. And this is why I have for years been saying, stop putting a Democratic majority in our Senate. Now, I'm not saying you neglect all people who are registered Democrat, but the point is, don't be blanket having, because there are people who feel that they have to go and vote for 7 people in the legislature. My position has always been, you vote for who you have total trust and confidence and would stand at any time behind the selection of that particular individual or individuals. If you can't take a position to stand to defend your selection, then really you should be voting for that person. So you vote for 2, you vote for 3, whoever it is that you can feel that strongly about. And if we each did that, I think then we would come up with 7 who are acceptable and have the proper credentials, that instead of this, it must be 7 and you're forced to vote for who you really don't have confidence in.
Let me ask you from your personal standpoint, being involved in this community as an advocate, especially for education and other matters as well. When you consider legislation that was moved some 20 years ago, roughly, maybe 15 to 20 years ago, to rebuild, reconstruct the Paulie Joseph Stadium, funding sources that they've not told us exactly what the funding sources are, except that we know that the Community Facilities Trust Fund has been tapped for that purpose. And by the way, that's against existing statutes. Because I don't even know how we accept that. The board should have been set up based on legislation to advise the governor in terms of how those money should be sent. We get no accounting as to how much money is actually in that fund, how much comes in on an annual basis. We have a stadium reconstruction project that began. Upwards of $30 million have been spent, and nobody has been able to tell the public, well, this is how the money is being spent. And that is what we've accomplished thus far. Who is at fault for this scenario being
I got to keep saying this, the legislature.
It's the legislature.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Okay. Because it's the legislature. And you see, this is why I say it's because of a lack of education, because we have a community that, because of the deficiency of our public education system, that really doesn't understand, in my opinion, how government runs. And the best example is, you always saying people down about the senator will say, well, fixing my road, that's so much, and the potholes, when we know, well, those of us who know better, who understand the government operation, knows that is not the senator's area of responsibility. But there are senators and other people who encourage that because the ignorance works to their advantage. Okay, but we have a problem where, and that's one of the big arguments going on now with the implementation that we fought for the VI history and basic Caribbean history, which would include the understanding of civics and the operation of government, being denied or being opposed with all kind of excuses as to why it can't be properly implemented.
Okay, well, some say that in terms of for example, on the high school level, some say that 4 years just isn't practical when you consider all the required credits to graduate.
And they're looking at what exists presently instead of considering that really our public education system needs a complete reform.
True.
And in the reformation, all those things can be adjusted.
So if you're going to have reform of public education, where do we begin? How do we put this, into a framework?
Well, that's all for the people who, study and consider what is needed there are things that exist right now
Mhm.
that don't necessarily help in any way the development and growth of our territory.
Mhm.
But nobody is considering, well, let's, put that there at an elective or change it or something. This is all what would be considered and debated and whatever in the discussion for the reform.
Mhm.
But we're not even talking about reform.
Right. Well, we have.
Okay, we
Wow.
just are looking to make objections and
Mhm.
say it can't. And I'm saying to people, don't you think that a course that involves the book
Mhm.
Trials and Triumphs that was written by Earl Atlee,
Mhm.
who specifically outlined in black and white
Mhm.
exactly what he did
Mhm.
to create a no to kill the two-party system
Mhm.
that existed.
Mhm.
The man told us blow by blow how he did it.
Mhm.
Okay, and even ended up because that's a page that I've been sending out
Mhm.
in his conclusion to point out that he regrets
Mhm.
that he did that.
Mhm. So when you talk about, well, let's teach the history in the schools, but what about teaching the people who serve us right now so that they can be acquainted with what transpired and be willing to bring about a change? In other words, if Earl B created that, which certainly has not benefited us here on this island, St. Croix, how do we impress upon the senators who serve us in the legislature to look at the facts, to behold what has happened, and to be willing to come together to change it?
I'll get to your answer, but I just happen to have the exact page that because I did circulate it to certain people from Urban B. Atlee's book, where he said he's talking about his regrets, and he says, referring to the takeover the Democratic Party by the Unity Party in the 1960s, Atlee said flatly, by hindsight, that was a mistake. Quote continues. It was the beginning of the end of the two-party system in the Virgin Islands. We've never recovered from it, and it will take a long time before we do recover.
And that comes from Earl B. himself.
Earl B. himself.
Wow.
Because he created, we had districting. Okay, the legislature had districting. Earl B., when the Unity Party took over the Democrat and he was president, that was the first thing he changed. He created the 7 people in one district, as opposed to a senator per district.
Actually, 7 in one and 8 in the other.
Okay, which just threw away any possibility of holding anyone accountable. Okay, and the change isn't happening because everybody that goes in, whether they're Democrat or not, realize that it's an advantage, because you can't question me about anything if I'm in the Senate. I mean, you were there, you probably, nobody, because there's 7 of you for just the whole island. And it's like, if someone comes to you and asks them, Baptiste, why you, well, really, because these are my issues, and check so and so, maybe they can't hold you accountable because you're not responsible for any area. Okay? And that's what Earl created. And he lived long enough to say in his book that he regretted it.
I don't know why there is hesitation, reluctance on the part of senators to have reapportionment of the legislature.
They don't want to be responsible.
And I'm going to tell you that I introduced a bill to do that. At the time, I was talking about reducing from 15 to 11, so that we would have
which is what it was before Earl changed it.
Right. So I was talking about doing that. And to be honest with you, at the time when the bill was submitted to be performed, the president called me and told me, "What are you going to do with that?" Straight up. And he said, "Man, this isn't going anywhere." Now, I was serving in the majority, but yet I was denied the opportunity to move that bill forward.
Because you were going to kill an advantage that everybody had.
Okay. Now, the other thing about it is that I find that the the voters on St. Croix in particular do not understand the dynamic of having a legislature where you have a district having, you know, a greater number of representatives than the other. For some reason, they don't grasp it, that the force is on the side of St. Thomas St. John district and not St. Croix when it comes to voting.
The reason I would disagree with that statement is because we have for years, and people keep saying we don't have native Prussian or native Centomian anymore because of the migration. Okay, and my thing is, then I say to them, if that be the case, okay, then how is it we can't get district in when you're coming from an Eastern Caribbean that is very strong and districting?
True.
So then aren't you purposely just listening to the misleaders and going along with the corruption?
You're right. The Caribbean islands basically have constituency-based representation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a very strong situation of districting, whether you call them, you just call them counties or
constituencies. That's what it's called, constituencies.
Okay.
You may have them sometimes they refer to them as districts.
Okay.
The Eastern District, the Western District, etc.
And you have some place as small as a BVI that has that, and you know, because people say that's one of the excuses they use. We're too small for districting.
Or you have people from the Eastern Caribbean islands that I've spoken with who have told me that we have too many senators. We need to reduce the numbers to 3. Can you imagine that?
Ridiculous.
3 senators.
Ridiculous.
One from St. John, one from St. Thomas, one from
ridiculous.
I mean, come on.
And I'm sure there are people who came from a different situation.
But that's what I'm telling you. You know, you take them. I believe in either Montserrat or St. Kitts Nevis, one of the two.
Yeah.
Had I think 9 representatives. I think it was Montserrat, unless I'm mistaken. 9 representatives. Much smaller than us here in this area. And how many they've got over in the BVI? About 10 or so, 9 or 10 in the BVI, district representatives. We are 3 islands here. Well, I say 3, but actually it's more than 3. There are
no 3 main islands,
right,
and I insist on that because historically that's the correct thing. People are looking to try to say it's 4. No, we're 3 main islands.
3 main islands.
Yes.
And we have 15 senators representing. You know, people tell you so many, but mind you, the Congress allowed for us to go
to 15
from 11 to 15.
Yeah.
You know
what they didn't count on is that they didn't know the districting would not have been.
It's the structure.
Exactly.
Yeah. The structure is what was messed with.
Exactly.
And it's haunting us up to this day.
And when we proposed that initiative back a couple of years ago, we kept the 15. It was just the structure we were focusing on.
Right.
And I tell people presently that I have a problem, and I was shocked that there's a particular former senator who at the time was, most adamant at the fact that districting was not necessary, who is now going to campaign to be part of a national institution that is based on districting.
Wow.
I got a problem with that. Serious. That is a hypocrisy to the hill.
All right. We got to get into what you want to talk about.
No problem.
Whenever you're ready. I'm ready. Let's shift. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm here particularly and specifically about Bill 360187, which is going to be heard on the Committee of Government Operations, Veterans Affairs, and Consumer Protection. And that's going to be on Friday, January 23rd in the Legislative Hall of St. Thomas. But as I always explain to everyone, makes no never mind where the chair of the committee sits. The Boat Island District Legislative Hall is always open to the public. So it's going to be in St. Thomas, but my advocacy is to try to get people to go and sit in the Legislative Hall in St. Croix and St. Thomas, particularly those who are supporters and advocates of having the choice of using paper ballot. And to read, I'm going to, because it's not long, read specifically the legislation as proposed. It's an act amending Title 18, Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 23, Section 2622, requiring the Board of Elections to count by hand votes deposited in a ballot box, and it's proposed by Senator Frankie Johnson.
Mhm.
It says Section 1, Title 18, Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 23, Section 622, is amended by designating the existing paragraph as subsection A and inserting the following subsections B, C, and D. B, to read, after the paper ballots are removed from the ballot box, the votes shall be counted by hand. C, to read, the election officers shall count the ballots in a manner that allows watchers to see the ballots when open and read. The election officer handling the ballot after it has been taken from the ballot box may not have a marking device in hand or remove a ballot from the immediate vicinity of the polls. And Section D, to read, ballots may not be counted before 8 p.m. on the day of election. Now, there's one adjustment that is going to be made, and that is in Section C, where it says the election officers shall count the ballots.
Mhm.
It really should be shall count the votes
Okay.
on the ballot, because you're not counting the ballot, you're
Mhm.
counting the votes
Right.
on that ballot.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, and it's a matter of, again, we're not saying to do away with machinery.
Mhm.
We're saying we want the option
Mhm.
of the paper ballot,
Mhm.
and the process of being using a paper ballot
Mhm.
is that it never touches a machine.
Mhm.
So while the law existed last election,
Mhm.
when I got arrested,
Mhm.
the law said that the paper ballot was to go in a separate ballot box.
Mhm.
Okay? It said nothing after that.
Mhm.
And so there was that loophole,
Mhm.
and that is what this is closing.
Mhm.
Because when it comes
So
out,
what was that the loop? What was the loophole really?
well, that because as the judge told me, I put it in this section. She was pointing to an area behind the DS 200
Mhm.
that she would put my paper ballot.
Mhm.
But as she clearly, emphatically told me, when we look to close your paper ballot going in the, I'm trying to remember the name for the actual name for the machine. The calculate, it's not calculator,
The tabulator? No?
the tabulator.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that they
Mhm.
pass the paper ballot in,
Mhm.
and it yes. Okay. So my thing is that is not what a paper ballot is supposed to
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
Okay. That defeats it
Paper,
all.
paper ballot is a traditional paper ballot has been used.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Let me-
And as I said, it's just a matter of we're asking for the choice.
Mhm.
And
You're asking for the choice.
yes, and constitutionally, there's nothing wrong with people being able to have a choice in how they vote.
Absolutely not. Now, many will tell you,
Uh-huh.
I'm sort of like reminiscent of what's happening with Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
They had moved that everything should be digitalized, if I may. You could only get your checks,
Mm-hmm.
either have it electronically deposited in your account, or you could have one of those debit cards, which you download your,
Mhm.
your payment and then you collect it. But there was pushback
Mm-hmm.
from people who don't want to get into that system, older people.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're now walking back the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
to allow people to continue to receive
Mhm.
a paper check.
Mhm.
Effectively. And so my question to you is that, do you think that there are significant numbers of persons who would feel more comfortable using the traditional paper ballot as opposed to the machinery that we have?
They are.
Okay.
Because I meet people all the time.
Mhm.
When I got arrested,
Mhm.
that whole day and for days after,
Mhm.
I would run into people all over the island who would tell me, I use a paper ballot, but I let them put it in the machine because when they heard about my arrest,
Mhm.
nobody wanted to be in that situation,
Mhm.
you know. But there are quite a number of people, yes, who want to have paper
I've
ballots.
always,
And let's remember, paper ballots are used by people who vote absentee.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, uh, so it is in the system.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of it. The continuation of the process
Mhm.
needs to be formal.
I've always questioned to what extent our people are comfortable with those machines. I'm gonna tell you why. I've been in places where ordinary folk who wanted to access, the ATM, their accounts via the ATM machine
Hmm.
would tell them, "Can you help me with this?"
Hmm.
They do have an ATM card,
Hmm.
but they have difficulty
Mhm.
making use of it and
Mhm.
asking to help.
Yeah.
You know, I myself sometimes when I deal with online
Mhm.
matters and I get fed up with these machines sometimes. I'd rather not deal with them.
Hmm.
So if I am uncomfortable,
Hmm.
I'm looking at rank and file people out there who may be having difficulty, and I question whether their votes are actually accounted for in the system.
I when I uh, was going around with because I was the main circulator for that reapportionment initiative, and I spent a whole month in St. Thomas
Mhm.
uh, getting because St. Croix district had met its numbers way ahead of time,
Mhm.
and St. Thomas was lagging a little bit. So I went and I spent a whole month. I lived in St. Thomas for a
Mhm.
month, going around and going to St. John and whatnot with the and I met government employees, and I know they were government employees because they had on the government T-shirt with
Mhm.
the insignia on their chest, who would brag that they weren't registered voters
Mhm. Wow.
and was not interested in being a registered voter because, according to them, the machine thinking the same people every
Right,
single time.
right. People don't
So
trust the machines. Yes.
what's the use?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
People don't
These,
trust the machines. I
so
don't blame them.
whether whatever for reason they thought that that was happening,
Mhm.
the thing is, if there's an option
Mhm.
where you know that the machine is not involved,
Mhm.
I think it would encourage more people to register
Mhm.
and more people to
Mhm.
vote.
Peggy, I
Yeah.
have helped. I have helped people filling out forms for them,
Hmm.
and I would see difficulty even when I tell them, you got to sign your name right here, and I see the difficulty they encounter after I've instructed them as to where they should place their signature.
Hmm.
And I said to myself, when these people go in to vote and they're using the machines, to what extent are they competent in the use of those machines? And I'm saying, but I don't see a reflection showing X number of things, spoiled votes, etc.
Hmm.
It doesn't show up in the results, and that's
Mhm.
why I am somewhat skeptical of the system.
Hmm.
Based on personal observation and experience. So I'm all for it. Let's see what callers have to say.
Go ahead.
Hello, caller. Good. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Jan Baptiste, you give me two minutes quickly.
Get your 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to agree with Peggy of the need to return to the paper ballot and the wooden ballot.
Just pardon the interruption because it's the choice of word you need use. It's not returning. It's allowing the choice. It's allowing the choice. Because when you say return, you give a listening audience the impression that we're trying to take away and replace the machine. No, we just added.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks for the correction. I understand. Yes. And the reason I will say that is I am saying that based on my knowledge of the system as a member of the board for 4 trade towns in a large position back in the 80s. And I would just like to mention, Peggy didn't elaborate on it with regards to what the proponents of the voting machines would allude to when they say a box. There is a box in the system. Yes, there is an area called that there before was the box where your ballot go. But we are talking about wooden ballot boxes. That's what we're talking about, right, Peggy?
Well, yeah, that is what the code specifically indicated. Yes.
Yes, yes. Good. And I said this thing because some of us get carried away and admired in this foolishness about the digital age. Let me tell you something about digital. The digital age comes with digital and expensive problems. Even AI. I mean, ask the proponents of AI. AI is not a simple thing. It's very in-depth. And you can't do A in AI and don't go on the way to Z. You got to do the whole thing. And it's been very expensive. So throw away common sense and talk about going digital age and AI. You'll find out how deep your pocket is. Thanks again.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for calling and sharing, my brother.
Yes.
Yes, baby, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to point out, paper, and this is why really a lot of the states now on the mainland under U.S. flag is looking to include paper ballots.
Hold a quick second. Go ahead.
Because paper can be, how would they say, properly a different type of auditing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you can't argue with the paper.
Mm-hmm.
You have the exact ballot with the votes to go back and recount if need be, which the machine does not give you that benefit. And I tell people, why you call it a regression when we're not getting rid of stenographers. You know why? Because stenographers are definitely that paper record is what the court considers the most valid.
I have my take on this in terms of record keeping, and as we continue in the digital age, the records that we have in terms of ancient tablets and what have you, had it not been for hieroglyphics and stuff like that, we wouldn't have that today. If we have a situation, God forbid it, where you have all those digital platforms destroyed, it's going to take the physical records that we have,
exactly,
to have us reconnect and to continue. So I am not for this wholesale, getting rid of, disposing of our written forms of doing stuff. I disagree with that position. Because history has revealed to me the value of having those physical records in place. Hello, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the program. I have Miss Mary Peggy Moorhead with me. I don't know if you followed her presentation.
No, I wasn't able to follow. Just heard. I didn't. Just as I called, I heard a bit of the conversation. So I presume you're talking about a measure for an action to not put your paper ballots in a tabulator, right?
Right, an option to have people use paper ballots and to have a separate wooden box where they can place the ballot once they've completed.
And for the ballot to be counted on site?
For the votes of those paper ballots.
Because there are several votes cast on a paper ballot. So
I understand. For the ballots and the votes to be counted on each site, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and this is my opinion. I find that regression. Opinions are not facts. I'm just stating an opinion, my point of view on this matter. And to me, it's sending a message that you cannot trust digital technology. You have an extra layer of security when you use the tabulators. Because it's not only is it going and what you call a jump drive. You also have the physical ballots that are being placed in a box. whether you go to the machine and the automatic machine and you get the printout, or whether you actually mark on the ballot itself, both of them going in the tabulators, the way it is set up now. I personally, I don't see anything wrong with that method. Everybody's entitled to their feelings and opinions. However, I think we need to embrace digital technology and move forward, advancement, not go backwards. We've been there. We talk about the conspiracy theory, 3,000 ballots just went poof and disappeared. Right, really? If you put a ballot in the box, it's there. If there's a challenge, it can be counted manually and match up to the digital results. In this age of technology, we have to stay ahead of the criminals because we have some smart criminals. Criminals know how to use technology. But you see what's happening with all these corrupt politicians? They're being caught because of a digital footprint. And if we were to encourage that, with most people taking that action, because you do have an action. You don't have to mark on the ballot. You could go to the machine, and that's by law, my understanding, for the visually impaired. You have an action there. So you do have actions when you go to vote. But to send a message out to the public that machines should not be trusted. The machines don't have minds of their own. They're operated by people. So in other words, you're saying you don't trust the system, period.
Pardon the interruption, but I must correct for the listening audience because I never said the machines are not to be trusted. I said this legislation, the purpose of this, but I must correct you, the purpose of this legislation is the option for the voter to be able to have a paper ballot that does not encounter with a machine. Right.
I understand clearly, and I am saying my opinion, that's regression, because with the tabulator, it prevents the ballot from being spoiled. And I'm saying you already have an option. If you choose to mark on the ballot, they give you a paper ballot, you can mark on it. And that ballot does go into a box.
May I ask, do you think that the court is regressive?
No, I'm thinking.
Because if you're thinking the use of paper is regressive, then the courts need to get rid of stenographers. No, we're talking about use of paper. We're talking about the use of paper. And if it's regressive to use paper, then the court should get rid of stenographers and just have things recorded. That's the position you're putting forward.
No.
That's what you said.
Please listen.
You said paper is regressive.
I use a paper ballot. I mark on my ballot. The last time I voted, I mark on the ballot. I'm talking about not inserting the ballot because the ballots are paper. When you mark on the ballot, that's a paper. I'm not marking on my hand. I marked on a ballot the last time and I inserted it into a tabulator. So I am speaking about encouraging people to go backwards to where we were before the tabulator. And my understanding, the law as it is now, and if we need clarity or not, definitely we need to have everybody on the board of elections and the supervisor on the same page and the senators. Because I'm hearing with the use of the tabulator, that's by law. But if I'm incorrect or anybody's making an incorrect statement, clarity is needed. I want to hear from the people who actually work in the system, from the supervisor of elections, from the senators that pass the election laws. These are the people we need to hear from because we need clarity about the law, whether it was appealed, whether there's an overlap in role and responsibility of the board of election members and the supervisor of elections in terms of what do you call it, Act 8690. We need clarity. So I'm not taking my opinion as a fact. I'm just saying my feelings is this is regression. We need to embrace digital technology
Can I?
It was the same thing when it came up with microwave and with calculators. Come on.
Can I
We
ask?
need to move forward
I'm gonna need
in
time
the
to read
21st century.
when she finishes.
Can I ask you a quick question? A couple of questions.
Yes.
Do you think it's a bad thing if we employ an approach to bring a measure of comfort, to bring a measure of how should I put it? Basically comfort to our senior citizens who may not be adept with the modern technology. Is that being regressive?
Not at all. I am saying right now with the digital technology,
Uh-huh.
we have a lot of seniors who are afraid even to text. But you have the experts. You have people there at the election office
Mm-hmm.
who are willing to instruct you. They give the demonstration of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And they should do more of that
Mm-hmm.
to ease people because I think voting should be as simple as possible. There shouldn't be any barriers to discourage anybody from going to vote. And I am saying it's an action.
Yeah.
But those seniors who may have, like I said, visual issue or even properly holding a pencil.
Yes. Yes.
You know, that's an issue. And
Uh-huh.
I'm saying you have people there to assist.
And I hear what you're saying in terms of people being there to assist, and I know what problems people have encountered with the very persons they had placed in position to assist. So I'm saying to you, we want to make sure that no one is left behind in our system.
I agree.
And so in such situations, I'm saying if you do have senior citizens who are not very comfortable with the system as it is structured, then whatever we can do to accommodate those persons, let's do it so that no one is left behind.
Yeah, well, you have the option now. You could mail in your ballot, right? So they could get help at home too, by family members. Is there a law to say you can vote absentee if you're living here and you choose not to go out the day of the election?
I don't know the full extent of how the absentee
that
voting.
is what I'm saying.
I don't know the full extent,
people
but
who are in the system, experts, get anybody to have an opinion, but let's do this in a systematic way, an approach in which we hear both sides of the issue.
And that's fair. That is fair indeed. Let me ask you one other question, because I've not used the tabulator. So let me ask you, how is the tabulator machine used? Do you receive a paper ballot ahead of time? You select your candidates and then insert that into the tabulator. I don't know if that's how it's done. I know that in one of the islands, they appear to have such a system where paper is used, but at the conclusion of the process, it is inserted into some kind of a machine.
Okay, well, I'm going to base it on my personal experience because I don't speak on behalf of anybody. I'm speaking on behalf of the Board of Elections, the Supervisor of Elections.
So let me hear you.
My personal experience, the last time I went to vote, they asked you about an option, whether you want to use that machine in which you're going to get a print out or you're going to mark on the ballot itself. I received a paper ballot.
Okay.
They count how many people walk in that door. It's carefully monitored, documented, recorded. So if 50 people just throwing out a number, show up at poll A, and they give out 50 paper ballots, and all 52, they're not going to use the machine. You get the ballot, you fill it out, you insert it into a tabulator.
Okay.
In which that to tell you if you overvoted. They will not allow you to spoil your ballot. And I'm saying that's the process that I used the last time.
Okay.
Not that I used the other method, but I wanted to compare to myself to see which one I find. I just want to compare the methods.
Okay.
And in any event, whether you use the touch screen and get a printout, or whether you actually mark on the ballot itself, both both of them you have to insert into the tabulator.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you now. All right. Okay.
Thank you. Have a beautiful, blessed day.
Thanks for calling and sharing with us. Bye. Yes, babe.
If I may explain something, because there's a process with a paper ballot that the audience may not be quite familiar with. And even some people who are on the board of election may not be familiar with. But I'm familiar because I was around and served as a watcher when we had paper alone and no machine. It's the transparency of the process with the paper ballot that is appealing. Okay, let's make sure we understand the people who work at the voting centers. That's what they call them now. They are sworn. They take an oath that is necessary in order for them because of the situation of election. They have to take this oath, and I think they sign off on papers and whatnot in order to work on election day in the voting center. And they do get training before election day. But what happens is that when the plate is closed, you have, and you should know this because you were a candidate, the candidates have a certain number of poll watcher certificates that they can get. Okay, that poll watcher certificate gives that person the permission in order to be present inside the election voting center once it closes at 7 o'clock. Okay, in order to see the process of the closing off of everything. Okay, now back in the day when there were no machines, that gave that person the permission to be there when the votes were being counted. Okay, and let's say every candidate can have a poll watcher, and all is required is they are assigned an area. Usually, it's just that if they whatever room they're in, they're a distance from the counted table where the workers are sitting with the materials and whatnot. So nobody can touch anything. They are in hearing distance of what is being said, and they can see what is being done. Now, what happened is you'll have the judge of that center will be the person to do the calling, or it can be a board member. That is up to the system to decide who's going to do the calling. They take out the paper ballots out of the containers ahead of time, and they stack them. Some of them did it according to a stack of 25. Some of them did it according to a stack. It's up to the judge or whoever to decide as to how they're stacking them. Okay, that's when they count the actual ballots, and they stack them in stacks of 25 or whatever back in the ballot. So they will take the 25, and the judge will take the first one, open up the ballot, and sort of hold it up for people to see, okay, around, and then they would start the calling. Now, the workers who are sitting at the table, okay, and it's usually the judge or the member that designate as to who these workers will be to do the tallying. They will have prepared what you would call spreadsheet. And I say spreadsheet in the form that it will have all the names of every single candidate coming down on the one side of the sheet with space in order to do the tallying lines next to the name that running across the entire sheet and coming down couple lines or spaces between each name. Okay, so the judge or the member would call the name of the candidate who got the vote on that ballot. And when the name is called, the workers who are sitting with their spreadsheets, they would do the mark next to that particular name. When it gets to that person getting 5 votes, you would hear everybody say tally. because they cross off,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a 5.
Mm-hmm.
What was amazing was if somebody didn't say tally, say if you have 5 people who are doing the counting,
Mm-hmm.
everything was stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be a reconciliation or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
in order for that person to understand where the error
Mhm.
was.
Mm-hmm. Something doesn't add up.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that is done, it's resolved, and then they continue
Mm-hmm.
with the next ballot and the next ballot and the next ballot.
Mhm.
But every poll watcher from the candidates standing on the side
Mm-hmm.
hear every vote call, see when every worker makes a mark.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a total transparent situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the really the whole advantage and attraction
Mm-hmm.
of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that gives the confidence to the people who are involved,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the people who are told and understand that process,
Mm-hmm.
that makes that paper ballot situation
Mm-hmm.
so so wanted, so desired,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that is something that there's no transparency when you put in a paper in a machine
Mm-hmm.
and it's telling you something, and you have somebody who claims to be, and not denied by anyone,
Mm-hmm.
an expert
Mm-hmm.
where computer and technology is concerned, get on a radio show. Well, at that time she was a radio host,
Mm-hmm.
and say publicly, you give me any situation and I can make an algorithm or whatever they call it
Algorithm.
in order to get the result
Mm-hmm.
I want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me just add here.
Okay.
That,
Now, let me make sure I understand, make it clear though.
yeah.
My reason, because all my life
Mm-hmm.
I vote on paper ballot, not paper,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a situation where there's a paper they give you as well as there's a paper ballot they can give you.
Mm-hmm.
I vote on a paper ballot,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And I have done that all my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not, when machines came into creation, realize until last election,
Mm-hmm.
because I was not aware of the code that said paper ballots had to be treated a different way.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say that I, for some reason, because of research that I do, things that I read, I know that just about every system can be compromised. You know, I have banks writing to me now and telling me what steps I should take to safeguard my account online. You know, because of what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
We had a situation where the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority lost some $2 million,
Mhm.
just vanished. Just so.
Mhm.
Things happen with these systems.
Yeah.
We try to be comfortable with them.
Yeah.
And I don't blame persons who just say that I don't want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The recent elections held on the island of St. Lucia, I didn't follow all of it, but I saw a report where people are claiming that the system was rigged, you know, on different levels. And although they were using some kind of paper,
Mm-hmm.
but the results were being read electronically. You hear?
Yeah.
And so folks are telling you that a lot of things just don't add up.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that the election was rigged.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't blame anybody here in the Virgin Islands. Based on all of these things that we hear about,
Mm-hmm.
that they feel more comfortable to have a physical paper ballot and to know that they can deposit that into a safe wooden box
Mm-hmm.
to be counted later. I'm not against that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to try to accommodate as many as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that simply because we're in this electronic age, it's all digital and computerized, and we should forget about people who don't feel comfortable with it, you know, I disagree with that.
And I have a problem and really take offense of people who want to say that because a senior person has a problem with technology, they're afraid of it. No. I founded the St. Croix Government Retirees Organization back in 2013. And, you know, I remember when we used to meet, it is now the Pleasant Vision area. We used to meet over there. That was the GRS, our old office at the time. And it used to be packed, a standing room only. And let me tell you, I was probably one of the few in the room who didn't have the up-to-date telephone, you know, the cell phone, one of the few, you know, and it's because I am not into $500-600 or whatever for a cell phone. So I know quite a few seniors who are very adept where it is, where technology is concerned. That is not their problem.
And let me tell you something else. A number of persons who are well versed in terms of computer technology and so on, when you see them using their cell phones, they just like one finger, you know. But there is a study that tells you something about those folk who use the one finger to text and so on, as opposed to following the trend of just two thumbs going. They tell you something about those individuals in terms of, you know, how they think and how structured they are, etc. So I don't study people. I use one finger.
I use one finger too.
I don't pretend. Even when folks were typing in the days of typewriter, I was never given to that. You know, I saw people just, you know, running the fingers like stenographers do, etc. You know, that's not a part of my tea drinking practice. You know, let's see what this person has to say. Hello, caller. Good day. Hello. Good day and welcome.
Yes, John Bob. I'm listening. I'm sorry. Quite clearly, and I heard the caller, who is well known to be an advocate for digital age. Fine, that's you and your digital age. But for God's sake, stop thinking that we who are older than you are for the dirty, because we're not. And we're not afraid of digital age. I send all my children to secondary school, to university, and they do all of my digital thing. We don't need to do it. But I know what it is. But I want to have the option of using a system that I am most comfortable with. And since I said that, let me just add something quickly. I was on the board of elections when as a matter of fact, I headed a committee to deal with electronic voting. Okay? Not a particular machine that Senator Berry wanted. We went to LaBelle, Florida to look at their system. And when we told the supervisor of election there, he said, what you trying to get you talking about? He said, go in that back window, see thousands of them throw down. He didn't take no more good, but that's what Berry wanted. And that's what Berry got. That was going to suit the dominant Democrat purpose. These people take people's job otherwise. You know? But I truly don't understand what it is we want. And them and those are the first to start brass of true and fair election. What true and what fair election? Let me tell you, I was on the board. And even though there was dominant Democrats on the board, people like Ms. Mola, Jerry Hodge and those, they never tried to hold with me. A small ICM, along with Ms. Porter for shelter, my elder on the board, ICM.
Well, Mr. Neves, we just, as we said, want an option with the paper ballot, where it is always, you know, regardless of how long someone makes a challenge, you can always go to storage, take out those paper ballots, and recount in order to verify. And this is why many of the areas in the mainland are now going back more and more to the paper ballot process, because, as they say, it is It deters challenges when you have boxes of evidence to counteract a challenge, as opposed to the yeah.
Peggy and John Baptiste, Texas, which I call my second home, has gone back. Many of the counties, you think they do that because they're looking what for they're afraid to be called for people? No, because they know it was a terrorism going on.
Well, let me make sure to repeat that because of the experience I talked about of meeting the people in the other district when I went around with that initiative. It was not all the people who were telling me they're not registered and they don't vote. It was people in their 30s and 40s.
And let me just say something in terms of throwing shade at people who don't trust the system. I want to remind us that it took a young chap from Williams Delight.
Ah, yes, with the bank
to break into the bank in Sunny Isles and rip them off big time.
Yes.
You know, just using his computer. All it takes one compromised technician under the very noses of all the board members can tap into the system and get the results that he wants to get. So I don't blame people for not trusting. You know, come on.
Especially when you have a board that the majority of the members are not necessarily technology savvy. You know, so they're listening to what people are telling them, but they can't necessarily analyze anything.
Okay. Allow me to go by saying this. I talk about back in the 80s. The programmer of the machine that Berry wanted brought in and she got away was a dominant Democrat just like her. But small me and I'm not afraid to ask big dominant Democrat questions. So I asked him, can this machine be rigged? He took a while and said, oh, you can answer faster, come on. He said, yes, Mr. Ned, I, as a programmer, can make this machine do what I want it to do.
All right.
Is that part of the algorithm we're talking about?
Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for calling and sharing, my brother. You stay strong. Keep the faith.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything to give us a greater sense of security as far as election is concerned, I'm for it.
And to increase the number of participation. Because this is what I said. I meet people out there every day who I believe if they had an option would do different, would participate. And they say so themselves. They just, for whatever reason, they can't explain it, but they don't trust the system as it exists now. But with an option, they would participate.
And let's underscore, not older senior citizens.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank you. Your last one before we
I thank you very much for the opportunity, and I am asking everyone who agrees that people should have an option to be able to vote to please on Friday the 23rd of January, make it your business. It begins at 9. I don't know if this will be the first item to be to be debated, but it begins at 9. Please make sure to make your way to the St. Thomas and the St. Croix Legislative Hall and sit to show support. Make sure you understand and realize senators does get swayed by numbers. So the more people they see sitting down in those halls, it makes a difference.
And they can also call the offices to to encourage, to persuade senators to support the measure.
The committee members, you have Avery Lewis as the chair, Novell Francis is the vice chair. The members are Senator Heiliger, Senator Carla Joseph, Senator Ray Fonseca, Senator Kenny Gittins. I think I had them all.
Okay.
And naturally, Frankie Johnson, who's the sponsor.
All right.
No problem there.
Okay, so there you have it,
Thank
folks.
you
We've
much.
gone full circle this morning. So until the next time, you stay safe, be blessed, give thanks and praises unto the Most High, and we'll reconnect then. All right.